If you're looking for an improved ride on your Class A coach and you're looking to reduce sway, then take a look at Roadmaster's front anti-sway bar kit on our 2012 Tiffin Allegro Open Road. Now this is what your Roadmaster Anti-Sway Bar is going to look like underneath your rig here. This is substantially heavier duty than your factory one. This is 1.75 inches thick. Most of the factory runs are 1.5 inches thick. That's going to be much better properties to help you with sway. One of the things I like is it comes with new grade 8 hardware and washers. It mounts in the same position in the same locations as your old sway bar, so that makes it kind of nice. You don't have to have new locations and new existing hardware or anything else that you need to do. It also includes polyurethane bushings. These bushings last much longer than rubber bushings. They are more resistant to road chemicals and oils. You can see how much beefier the Roadmaster kit is. This factory link on our Tiffin was 1.5 inches thick. This is 1.75 inches. The sway links are even heavier duty. You can tell this is going to be significantly stiffer in flexing. You can just tell by the end links and how thick they are. Now, we took this out on our test course before we installed this, just to see what the difference would be with this setup versus our factory setup. Let's go ahead and take a look at that now. So we're out here on the test course right now, and honestly, this is where your anti-sways are going to make the biggest impact, or where you can actually feel it, is going over, say, speed bumps or at a campground with a rougher road. Also, when you're out on the highways, if you're going to have some crosswinds or if a semi passes you, you're going to have some movement out of the bus, just like this. And, you know, these work in harmony with the suspension system, the springs, the shocks, and these are components that just gradually start to get weaker over time. And so you don't notice it right away if you need a replacement or additional sway links and sway bars. But these are things that the ride quality over time is going to diminish, and you're going to have more movement. You know, the whole idea of RVing is supposed to be comfortable and relaxed. And when your suspension components start to get worn, you start to get more movement. You're going to have to make more corrections on the wheel. Your neck could get sore from bobbing back and forth. I know this. I drove over the road for 21 years. And it's the little things like this that are going to make your ride more enjoyable. We're just going to get some sway. And there's quite a bit. This is an older unit, a very nice unit. But again, these components need to be updated. And now that we've gone over our test course, let's go ahead and get this in the shop, and we'll do our suspension upgrades, and we'll see what kind of a difference it makes. So we're back here on our test course with the sway bar installed, and the course is kind of designed, we have some offset speed bumps that will make the rig go back and forth. We can't simulate, of course, wind, crosswinds and everything else, but this is something that the sway bars are actually going to help with out on the road. You know, these things aren't going to take all of the sway out of your rig. There's a fine line between a sloppy swaying side to side and a more controlled sway. And that's what we're kind of looking for, is more of a controlled sway in these things. You're going to have crosswinds that are going to be pushing your rig over, but if you've got extra sway bar support, it's going to lean over and it's going to be controlled. And that's what we're looking for here. Usually when you're driving down the road and you're getting hard left and right crosswinds, or if a semi passes you, stuff like that, that changes the geometry in your steering. And so you'll be steering and trying to fight that. You'll be going back and forth. So anything you can do to upgrade your chassis on these Class A coaches is really going to help. So as we're going over these bumps, of course, this is simulating either, you know, some bad potholes or the parking lot or some of these KOA locations where you're going to be camping and parking for the night, and sometimes the roads aren't the best. And what we have is just a more controlled feel on this. If you're upgrading your chassis and you've already done like suspension upgrades as far as maybe some timbrins or airbags, assists, or new shocks and stuff like that, the anti-sway bars are just going to complement what you've already upgraded. So final thoughts on the Roadmaster sway bar upgrade. Look, I think these are essential upgrades to your coach. You've seen the befores and afters, and I can tell you from experience that these are going to make a big difference for you out on the road. If you think you'd like to install them yourself, we're going to go ahead and pull this inside. We can take a closer look at them underneath, and I'll show you how we installed them. Let's get started on our sway bar install. We're going to be working right here at the front axle of the RV here. We're going to be removing the end links and the sway bar itself. Now to start with, we're going to work at the sway links and mostly the upper bolt up here. I've got a 18 millimeter and a 15 millimeter wrench, and what we're going to do is loosen these up. We don't want to take them off completely. We're just going to loosen them up for right now. Okay, now we've loosened it up. Now I'm keeping the nut on the back side. These will actually be the last things that we take off. We're going to take everything else apart and let this thing swing down, and we'll take it off up here. Next, move down to the other end of the link here, and we'll loosen this up as well. Again, not removing it completely, just enough to give us a little play. Go ahead and do this on the other side as well. With both sway links loose, we're going to turn our attention to the frame connection here. I am going to switch over to a 18 millimeter deep socket for the top up here, and we'll use our 15 millimeter wrench, and we'll go ahead and loosen the bar up. This is loose. Let's go ahead and move to the bottom here, and we'll loosen that up as well. With chassis components like this, we're not taking anything off just yet. This bar weighs quite a bit. We also want to make sure that it's not under tension when we do this. Normally they're not, but sometimes they could be. So this is why I just kind of loosen everything up first, and then we can see what's going on. Okay, now all of our connections are loose at this point, and I can kind of double check and make sure that there's no tension on either side. So it'll be So it will be safe for us to remove these and let the bar come and swing down. And you can see as I'm loosening the bolts, now we can tell it's not under tension. You know, like I said, each situation is different. Each motorhome is kind of a custom-built chassis, so it's just better to be safe than have this big chunk of metal either under pressure or come flying down at you. Go ahead and just let this hang. We're going to have to loosen the sway link bracket up here. As you can see, the bolt's contacting the AC compressor and it won't come all the way out. So we're going to loosen the bracket, be able to swing it out of the way and remove this bolt. So use the same wrenches, the 15 and the 18. The 18's on the inside to loosen up our bracket. Now you can see we can slide this out of the way. Now the driver's side is open on our Tiffin here, so we don't have to loosen that bracket up. Just go ahead and bring this down. We'll start by hanging the end links. Now you can see there's going to be a curve to it. On ours, the sticker is on the side that's going to go down to our sway link. I don't know if they did that on purpose. It just happened to be like that on ours. In any event, the longer section before the short section where it curves, the longer section will go up. And we're going to hang this up here. This does come with new hardware. It's going to have a nylock nut and cap bolt here. And we're just going to hang that right now and loosely put the nut on. Now we were putting the passenger side end link up, and this was the bracket at the top. We were going to slide it in, and with our new hardware, I had to end up drilling this with a 1/2-inch drill bit for it to fit through. And then we went ahead and noticed the other holes, and on the saddle mounts right here, it's super tight. And the new hardware really doesn't want to fit in there very easily at all, but it's fine on the driver's side. So the reason I'm bringing this up is don't be tempted to reuse the old hardware. This is not going to work on your new end links and everything else. They're going to be too loose. So if you have a 1/2-inch drill bit, go ahead and ream that out. I'm about to do the same with the saddle mounts here so that we can use our new grade 8 hardware that came with our kit. This isn't really a Roadmaster problem. This is more a Ford problem on these chassis, but either way, it's your problem. I mean, we can swing the bracket up. And again, we'll just place the nut on the other side loosely. Now on these top mounts, there's no washers or anything that go up here. It's just the bolt and the nylock nut on the other side. We'll take the supplied hardware and attach our sway bar to the link. Finish it with a washer and the nylock nut. We're going to keep everything loose right now while we mock this up. And go ahead and repeat that on the other side as well. Now that our sway bar is hanging, we can turn our attention to the saddle mounts here and their bushings. So you'll notice that they're split, so we can get that over. But before we do that, there is a supplied grease here. You can go ahead and lubricate the inside of the saddle mount bushing. This piece is rubber. This mainly eliminates squeaking. And you can kind of eyeball up about where it's going to go. And then take the frame, put that on, and repeat that for the other side as well. We're left with the shorter hardware and flat washers, nylock nut. That's going to be used to actually bolt up our saddle mounts. You need a washer in the front and a washer on the back. Again, we're going to keep everything loose right now until we can center everything up. Go ahead and repeat that on the other side as well, upper and lower. And before we tighten this up, you do want to make sure that it's somewhat centered since everything is loose. I just took a tape measure and I went from the inside of the saddle bracket to the furthest point out, and it's the bend over here. And I had roughly 6 inches, and the same over here. So we are pretty well centered. We're going to go ahead and tighten this down to in the reverse order that we took the old one off. So we'll start with the saddle mounts. We're going to snug these up and torque these to the specs on our motorhome. Now this new hardware is 19 millimeter. That's both sides, on the front side here and the nylock nut on the back. Now since this is the first time, this is brand new hardware, and the nylock nuts, I don't really worry about using blue Loctite. If you, for any reason, have to take this off and readjust it, nylock nuts are great for the first time. Anytime after that, I would recommend using blue Loctite. With the saddle mounts tight, we can turn our attention to the bottom of the sway links. We'll tighten these up next, both sides. Now that the lower link is torqued up, we can move our attention up to the top. Don't forget to tighten the bracket for the passenger side up here. And then we're going to torque the top of the link to the same specs that are in the manual for the RV. Go ahead and repeat that on the driver's side. That was a look at Roadmaster's front anti-sway bar kit on our 2012 Tiffin Allegro Open Road.